Hi guys, tonight, we travel quietly into the ancient world. Far from the noise of modern life, beyond the reach of memory, the land of Egypt rests beneath a blanket of stars. The desert stretches outward in every direction, calm and still beneath the night sky. The Nile River moves through the darkness with patient certainty, its waters reflecting faint points of light. A warm breeze drifts over the riverbanks and across fields that have already fallen silent for the evening. Most people today remember Egypt through its great pyramids, its temples, and the names of powerful rulers carved into stone. Yet those monuments were surrounded by ordinary lives. While kings planned monuments and priests watched sacred rituals, millions of people simply woke each morning, worked through the heat of the day, shared meals with their families, and searched for moments of rest before sleep. Tonight, we leave behind the grand halls and towering statues. Instead, we step quietly into the homes of farmers, builders, fishermen, servants, merchants, and scribes. We follow their routines. We listen to their footsteps. We watch the slow rhythm of daily life beside the Nile. As the night deepens, let your thoughts move gently across dusty roads and river paths. Imagine mud brick homes resting beneath the stars. Imagine sandals resting beside doorways. Imagine the smell of bread slowly fading from cooking fires. The ancient world is waiting. And somewhere beyond the darkness, morning is beginning to approach. Long before sunrise, Egypt is already stirring. The air is cooler now than it will be later. During these precious hours before dawn, many people sleep deeply. Families lie together inside simple homes made from mud bricks dried beneath the sun. The walls are thick enough to soften the heat of the day. Small openings allow air to move through the rooms. The furniture is simple. Many homes contain woven mats, wooden stools, storage jars, baskets, and low sleeping platforms. Some people sleep directly upon reed mats laid across packed earth floors. Others rest on simple wooden beds covered with linen cloth. Outside, the streets remain mostly quiet. Only an occasional sound drifts through the darkness. A dog moves between shadows. A distant donkey shifts its weight. The river continues its endless journey. The stars hang overhead with remarkable brightness. Without lamps filling the night, the sky appears vast and alive. Ancient Egyptians knew these stars well. They watched them carefully. Farmers, priests, sailors, and travelers all paid attention to the heavens. For now, however, most eyes remain closed. The day has not yet begun. Inside one small village near the Nile, a farmer sleeps beside his wife and children. His hands are rough from years of labor. His muscles ache from carrying water, digging irrigation channels, and working beneath the relentless sun. Every evening fatigue settles heavily into his body. Sleep comes easily. Tomorrow will demand more labor. Tomorrow always does. Across Egypt, thousands of similar homes hold families resting before another day of work. Builders sleep. Potters sleep. Weavers sleep. Fishermen sleep. Scribes sleep. Servants sleep. Even the wealthier households remain quiet. The darkness offers a brief pause from effort. But gradually, almost unnoticed, the eastern horizon begins to change. A faint gray light appears. Birds awaken. The cool air shifts. The first moments of morning arrive gently across the Nile Valley. Many workers wake before sunrise. This habit is not a matter of preference. It is necessity. The heat of Egypt can become overwhelming once the sun climbs high into the sky. Valuable work must begin early. The farmer rises slowly from his sleeping mat. For a few moments he remains still, allowing his body to adjust. The room is dim. Nearby, family members continue sleeping. He steps carefully across the floor and moves toward the doorway. Outside, dawn spreads across the landscape. The fields are quiet. Mist sometimes hangs above sections of the river. Palm trees stand motionless against the growing light. The farmer breathes deeply. Soon the village will be alive. But for now, there is peace. Nearby, another household begins to wake. A woman kneels beside a grinding stone. One of the first tasks of many mornings involves preparing grain. Bread forms the foundation of daily life throughout ancient Egypt. It appears on tables rich and poor. Every household depends upon it. The work begins early. Grain must be ground into flour. Hands move steadily across the stone surface. The sound becomes part of the morning. A slow scraping rhythm. Repeated countless times. Day after day. Year after year. As more homes awaken, these sounds spread through the village. Grinding. Sweeping. Footsteps. Quiet voices. Small cooking fires. The smell of baking bread gradually enters the air. For many Egyptians, breakfast is modest but important. Bread may be accompanied by onions, vegetables, dates, or leftover foods from the previous day. Beer, made from grain, is also common. It contains nutrients and serves as a reliable source of hydration. The morning meal provides energy for long hours ahead. Children begin waking. Animals stir. Donkeys bray. Goats wander near household walls. The village grows brighter with each passing moment. Now the farmer gathers simple tools. He joins others moving toward the fields. Together they follow narrow paths leading away from their homes. The Nile shapes nearly every aspect of their existence. Without the river, agriculture would be impossible across much of Egypt. The annual flood brings fertile soil. Irrigation channels carry water toward crops. Entire communities organize their lives around the rhythms of the river. As sunlight spreads across the landscape, workers arrive at cultivated fields. The labor begins. Some men carry hoes. Others inspect irrigation ditches. Many bend immediately to their tasks. The work is physical and repetitive. Soil must be turned. Water must be directed. Plants must be protected. Every season demands different responsibilities. The farmer's body quickly warms as activity increases. Sweat appears. Dust clings to skin. The day is only beginning. Nearby, scribes also begin their routines. Unlike farmers, scribes spend much of their time writing, recording, and organizing information. Their work requires literacy, a skill possessed by only a small portion of the population. A young scribe enters a government building as sunlight brightens the walls outside. He carries writing materials carefully. Papyrus sheets. Ink. Reed pens. His responsibilities may include recording taxes, tracking grain supplies, documenting labor assignments, or maintaining official records. His hands remain cleaner than those of field workers. Yet his work requires concentration and discipline. Hours will pass while he sits bent over documents. His eyes follow rows of symbols. His attention rarely drifts. Ancient Egypt depends upon countless records. Numbers. Names. Inventories. Schedules. The kingdom functions because people remember, organize, and record information. As morning continues, workshops also come alive. Potters shape clay. Carpenters smooth wood. Stone workers prepare materials. Metal workers tend fires. The sounds vary from one street to another. Hammering, scraping, cutting, turning wheels. Voices discussing orders and deliveries. Every trade contributes to the larger rhythm of society. Inside a pottery workshop, the air already feels warm. Clay waits beside spinning wheels. A potter settles onto a stool and begins working. His hands know the movements without conscious thought. Years of practice guide every motion. The clay rises beneath his fingers. A storage jar slowly emerges. Its shape appears simple. Yet it requires skill. Many homes depend upon such vessels. They store grain, water, oil, beer, and countless other necessities. Throughout Egypt, ordinary objects quietly support daily life. Most people never think about them. But without them, routines become difficult. The potter continues working. The wheel turns. Morning light enters through the doorway. Outside, footsteps pass along the dusty street. Life moves steadily forward. Near the river, fishermen prepare boats. The Nile provides food, transportation, and employment for many families. Small vessels rest along muddy banks. Nets are inspected. Ropes are checked. Wooden poles are gathered. The fishermen push away from shore. The water ripples gently beneath their boats. Sunlight glitters across the river surface. Birds move overhead. For a brief moment, away from crowded streets and demanding supervisors, the river feels peaceful. The fishermen know these waters well. They understand currents, seasonal changes, and the habits of fish. Experience guides them. Patience rewards them. The river has always shaped their lives. And it always will. Back in the villages and towns, the sun climbs higher. The coolness of dawn begins fading. Heat slowly spreads across streets, fields, and rooftops. Workers notice the change immediately. Shadows shorten. Air becomes heavier. Sweat appears more quickly. The Egyptian day is entering its warmer hours. Yet labor continues. The farmer remains in the field. The potter remains at his wheel. The scribe remains at his desk. The fisherman remains on the river. Every person follows routines repeated thousands of times across generations. These habits are not remarkable. They are not famous. No monuments celebrate them. Yet together they form the true foundation of Egyptian life. The great temples and royal tombs often receive attention from history. But they stand upon a much larger world of ordinary effort. Someone grows the grain. Someone bakes the bread. Someone carries water. Someone repairs tools. Someone records deliveries. Someone builds walls. Someone sweeps floors. Someone gathers reeds. Someone rows the boat. The daily habits of countless ordinary people quietly sustain the kingdom. As morning approaches midday, sunlight becomes intense. The desert beyond the cultivated land shimmers beneath the heat. Dust rises from roads. Animals seek shade. People move more slowly. Even breathing seems heavier. The farmer pauses briefly and wipes sweat from his forehead. Nearby workers do the same. Conversation becomes quieter. Energy is conserved. The sun dominates everything now. Its presence shapes every movement. In workshops, doors may remain open to encourage airflow. Inside homes, family members search for cooler spaces. Children rest in shaded areas. Elderly residents avoid unnecessary activity. The heat demands respect. Across Egypt, daily schedules adapt accordingly. People learn from experience. The hottest hours require patience. They require endurance. They require acceptance. And so the ancient world continues beneath the bright Egyptian sun, following rhythms older than memory itself. The river flows. The bread bakes. The tools rise and fall. Sandals move across stone floors. Voices drip through narrow streets. And above it all, the endless sky watches another ordinary day unfold beside the Nile. The hours around midday settle over the Nile Valley like a warm blanket. The sunlight feels almost solid now. It pours across fields, rooftops, temple walls, and dusty roads. Air rises from the ground in soft waves. The brightness smooths the landscape until distant objects seem to shimmer gently against the horizon. Many workers continue their tasks despite the heat. The farmer remains in the field. His tunic is damp with sweat. Dust clings to his legs and sandals. The muscles in his back ache from bending and lifting. He has known this feeling for most of his life. Around him, others work in similar silence. The labor is steady. There is little hurry. The crops cannot be rushed. The earth cannot be rushed. The river cannot be rushed. Everything follows its own pace. A narrow irrigation channel carries water between rows of growing plants. The current moves quietly through the trench. Sunlight flashes upon its surface. Tiny insects hover above the water. Occasionally a breeze passes through the field, bringing a brief moment of relief. The workers notice every breeze. Even the smallest movement of cool air feels precious beneath the afternoon sun. Not far away, a young boy carries a jar of water toward the laborers. The vessel is heavy. His arms strain beneath the weight. Yet this task is important. Water supports every part of life. Throughout Egypt, countless daily journeys revolve around carrying, storing, and distributing water. The boy carefully lowers the jar. Workers gather for a short rest. Hands cup water. Faces are washed. Dust disappears from foreheads and cheeks. For a few minutes, conversation grows slightly louder. Then the work resumes. Such pauses are small but meaningful. They break the day into manageable pieces. They allow tired bodies to continue. In a nearby town, merchants stand beneath shaded awnings. Their goods rest in baskets, jars, and wooden containers. The market moves slowly during the hottest hours. Customers walk carefully through narrow streets. Many prefer to wait until later in the day when temperatures begin to fall. Still, business continues. A merchant arranges dates inside woven baskets. Another measures grain. Nearby, a woman examines cloth hanging from a wooden frame. The sounds of bargaining drift softly through the air. Nothing feels hurried. The heat itself discourages urgency. People conserve energy. They move with purpose rather than speed. The market possesses its own rhythm. Footsteps. Voices. The rustle of linen. The occasional bray of a donkey. The creak of wooden carts. These sounds blend together beneath the bright sky. Inside one workshop, a carpenter continues shaping pieces of wood. Egypt contains relatively few large forests. Wood is valuable and often imported from distant lands. Skilled craftsmen therefore work carefully with every piece. The carpenter studies the grain before making each cut. Wood shavings gather on the floor around him. The scent of freshly worked timber fills the room. Outside, the heat remains intense. Inside, the shade offers some protection. Yet even here the air feels warm. Sweat gathers along his neck. His hands remain busy. Tools rise and fall in familiar patterns. Years of repetition have made the movements almost effortless. His body remembers what to do. Many ancient workers rely upon this kind of memory. Tasks repeated thousands of times become part of the muscles themselves. The hands know. The arms know. The back knows. Work becomes routine. And routine becomes life. Farther along the river, fishermen pull in their nets. The Nile glitters beneath the afternoon sun. The water appears bright enough to hurt the eyes. Fish flash briefly beneath the surface. The fishermen work together quietly. Their movements are practiced. No words are needed for many tasks. Each person understands his role. The net rises slowly. Water drips back into the river. Fish twist and shimmer inside the mesh. The catch will help feed families. Some fish will be eaten immediately. Others may be dried or preserved. Food preparation requires constant attention throughout Egyptian society. Meals do not simply appear. Every loaf of bread, every basket of vegetables, every fish, every jar of beer depends upon labor. Behind each meal lies a chain of effort stretching across fields, workshops, kitchens, and riverbanks. The people of Egypt understand this well. Few can afford waste. Resources are precious. Work is precious. Time is precious. As the afternoon continues, many homes become active once more. Inside a mud brick house near the edge of a village, a woman kneels beside a clay oven. The room smells of grain and smoke. Fresh dough waits nearby. Her hands move confidently. She has performed these actions countless times. Bread remains one of the most important foods in daily life. Its preparation requires patience and strength. Grain must first be harvested, then transported, then ground, then mixed, then baked. Only after all these steps does a loaf appear upon the family table. The woman places dough inside the oven. Heat radiates outward. The smell of baking bread slowly fills the room. Children nearby notice immediately. Few scents are more familiar. Few scents are more comforting. Across Egypt, similar smells drift from thousands of homes. Bread baking. Vegetables cooking. Smoke rising toward the sky. The afternoon moves gently onward. In another part of town, a servant carries supplies through a large household. Life for servants often involves constant movement. Cleaning. Fetching water. Preparing food. Maintaining storage rooms. Assisting wealthier families. The work is demanding. Yet much of it happens quietly. The servant moves through shaded corridors. Sunlight enters through openings above. Dust dances within bright shafts of light. The building remains cooler than the streets outside. Even so, the day feels long. Fatigue slowly accumulates. By evening, tiredness will settle deeply into the body. This experience is shared by many people throughout Egypt. Physical exhaustion forms a common part of life. Most work requires effort. Most effort requires endurance. And endurance becomes habit. Meanwhile, scribes continue writing. Inside administrative buildings, papyrus scrolls cover desks and shelves. Ink dries upon fresh records. Officials review inventories. Numbers are checked carefully. Mistakes create problems. Accuracy matters. The work lacks the visible strain of farming or construction. Yet it carries its own challenges. Hours of concentration demand mental energy. The scribe remains seated while sunlight shifts gradually across the room. Outside, the world glows beneath the afternoon sun. Inside, rows of symbols fill another page. The quiet scratching of a reed pen continues. Steady. Patient. Uninterrupted. As the sun begins its slow descent, subtle changes appear across the landscape. The light softens. Shadows lengthen. The most intense heat gradually loosens its grip. People notice. Workers notice first. Their bodies feel the difference immediately. The air remains warm. Yet it becomes easier to breathe. A faint breeze drifts across the fields. Leaves stir. Animals become more active. The afternoon slowly begins turning toward evening. For many laborers, these hours bring renewed energy. The farmer straightens his back and surveys the field. Much work remains. There is always more work. Yet the approaching evening offers comfort. The hardest heat has passed. The day is moving toward rest. Nearby, birds gather along the riverbanks. Their calls drift through the air. The Nile reflects the changing sky. Bright white sunlight gradually transforms into softer gold. The landscape appears gentler now. Less demanding. More forgiving. Boats continue moving along the river. Some carry goods. Others transport people between communities. The Nile serves as a road connecting much of Egypt. Travel by water is often easier than travel across land. From a distance, the boats appear peaceful. Sails catch the breeze. The vessels glide across the surface with remarkable calm. Passengers sit quietly. Some watch the shoreline pass. Others simply enjoy the movement of air after a long hot day. The river provides many gifts. Food. Transportation. Fertile soil. Relief from heat. A sense of continuity. Generations come and go. The Nile remains. As evening approaches, children play near their homes. Their laughter drifts through village streets. Unlike adults, they often possess energy even after the hottest hours. They chase one another through narrow pathways. They invent games. They explore familiar corners of their community. Parents watch while continuing household tasks. The atmosphere feels lighter now. Work is beginning to fade. Rest is drawing closer. In the market, merchants prepare for the busiest part of the day. Customers return as temperatures become more comfortable. Foot traffic increases. Voices grow louder. The streets feel alive once more. Baskets of produce change hands. Fish are sold. Cloth is inspected. Grain is measured. The evening market becomes a social space as well as a commercial one. Neighbors meet. News is exchanged. Families gather. People who spent the day scattered across fields and workshops slowly return toward shared spaces. The community reconnects. This daily rhythm repeats again and again throughout the year. Morning separates people into their various duties. Evening brings them together once more. The pattern feels natural, reliable, comforting. As sunlight continues to fade, smoke rises from cooking fires. The smell of evening meals spreads through towns and villages. Bread, vegetables, fish, beans. Simple foods prepared with care. Families gather for supper. The day's labor becomes conversation. Someone speaks about conditions in the fields. Someone mentions a neighbor. Someone discusses repairs needed around the home. Children share small stories from the day. The meal may be modest. Yet it provides more than nourishment. It offers connection. A chance to pause. A chance to be together before darkness returns. Beyond the villages, the desert slowly cools. The blazing heat stored within stone and sand begins to fade. The sky changes color. Gold becomes orange. Orange becomes deep red. Then purple shadows stretch across the land. The transition feels gradual, almost gentle. The sun approaches the horizon. Workers head home. Boats return to shore. Animals settle for the night. And across ancient Egypt, another long day slowly prepares to give way to evening. The river continues flowing through the gathering twilight. Its waters move with the same patient rhythm they have followed for thousands of years. Along its banks, lamps will soon begin to glow. Families will seek rest. The heat of the day will become memory. And the quiet hours of night will once again spread across the ancient world. The last light of day lingers softly over the Nile. For a little while, the world seems suspended between two moments. The work of the day is ending. The stillness of night has not yet fully arrived. Across the riverbanks, the fading sunlight touches fields of grain, clusters of palm trees, and rows of mud brick homes. Long shadows stretch across narrow roads. The air remains warm, but the harshness of afternoon has disappeared. People breathe more easily now. The evening belongs to them. A farmer walks home along a familiar path. His sandals press gently into the dusty ground. The day's labor rests heavily in his muscles. His shoulders ache. His hands feel rough and tired. Yet there is comfort in the journey home. He knows every turn in the road. He knows every tree. He knows every neighbor he passes. The village appears peaceful beneath the golden sky. Nearby, another worker returns from a workshop. Wood dust still clings to his clothing. His arms feel tired from lifting tools throughout the day. As he approaches home, he hears the sounds of family life emerging from open doorways. Children talking. Cooking pots moving. Voices greeting returning relatives. These simple sounds fill the evening air. For many Egyptians, this is one of the most pleasant times of the day. The heat weakens. The light softens. Responsibilities begin to fade. Even the animals seem calmer. Goats settle into small enclosures. Donkeys stand quietly near walls. Birds search for resting places among reeds and trees. Along the Nile itself, fishermen guide their boats toward shore. The water reflects shades of gold and copper. Each ripple catches the fading light. The river appears almost dreamlike. One fisherman secures a rope to a wooden post. Another begins unloading baskets. The day's catch must be sorted and prepared. Tomorrow will bring another journey onto the water. The rhythm never truly stops. It simply pauses for a few hours before beginning again. Nearby, women gather water before darkness fully arrives. Clay jars rest upon shoulders and hips. The walk is familiar. Generations have followed the same paths between homes and water sources. The task requires strength and balance. Yet it also offers moments of quiet conversation. Neighbors exchange news. Children walk beside their mothers. The river listens patiently as it always has. The Nile witnesses every routine. Every season. Every life. Back inside the village, cooking fires become brighter as daylight fades. Thin streams of smoke drift upward. The smell of evening meals spreads through the streets. Fresh bread emerges from ovens. Vegetables simmer in clay pots. Fish cooks over small fires. The scents mingle together beneath the darkening sky. Inside one modest home, a family gathers near the evening meal. The room is simple. Mud brick walls surround the space. Storage jars line one side of the room. Baskets rest near the doorway. A small oil lamp flickers softly. Its light dances across the walls. The family sits close together. The day has been long. Everyone feels it. The father moves slowly after hours in the fields. The mother has spent much of the day grinding grain, preparing food, carrying water, and managing household tasks. The children are growing sleepy. Yet this quiet gathering offers comfort. Food is shared. Conversation unfolds gently. No one rushes. Outside, darkness continues spreading across the land. The stars begin appearing one by one. Without modern lights, the night sky reveals itself with remarkable clarity. Ancient Egyptians knew the sky intimately. They lived beneath it every evening. They watched familiar constellations rise and move across the heavens. Many stories and beliefs were connected to these distant lights. For ordinary people, however, the stars also provided something simpler. They provided companionship. They reminded people that tomorrow would come. That seasons would continue. That life would move forward as it always had. As evening deepens, the village gradually becomes quieter. Children grow tired. Many have spent the day running through streets, helping with small tasks, or accompanying adults during daily routines. Now their energy fades. A young child leans against a parent. Eyes grow heavy. Yawns appear. The warmth of the evening meal settles comfortably in the stomach. Soon sleep will arrive. Elsewhere, workers gather outside homes before retiring for the night. The cooler air feels pleasant after the day's heat. Neighbors sit together and talk softly. Stories are shared. News travels from one household to another. A traveler may describe conditions in a nearby town. A merchant may mention recent activity in the marketplace. A farmer may discuss crops and irrigation channels. These conversations are unhurried. No one competes for attention. The darkness encourages calm voices. The stars watch silently overhead. Not every evening is peaceful, of course. Life in ancient Egypt includes illness, injury, and worry. A worker may return home with an aching back. A fisherman may wonder about tomorrow's catch. A parent may worry about a sick child. Fatigue touches nearly every household. The physical demands of daily life are significant. Many people carry small pains throughout their lives. Sore joints. Strained muscles. Old injuries. Exhaustion. The body remembers years of labor. Yet people continue. They wake each morning. They perform their duties. They care for families. They find moments of joy where they can. Their lives are not defined by monuments or royal ceremonies. They are defined by endurance. By routine. By quiet persistence. As darkness settles fully across the Nile Valley, many homes light small lamps. The glow is gentle. Nothing like the brightness of daylight. Just enough to illuminate a room. Just enough to continue a task. The flame flickers whenever a breeze enters through a doorway. Shadows shift across walls. The atmosphere becomes calm and intimate. In one home, a woman repairs a piece of linen. Her fingers move carefully through the fabric. The work is slow. There is no urgency. The day's major tasks are finished. This is time for smaller responsibilities. Time for maintenance. Time for preparation. Nearby, a man sharpens a simple tool that will be needed tomorrow. The scraping sound is soft and rhythmic. Back and forth. Back and forth. The motion becomes almost meditative. Outside, insects begin their nightly songs. The sounds drip through the darkness. The river contributes its own quiet voice. Water touches reeds. Small waves brush against shorelines. Occasionally, a distant bird calls across the night. Together these sounds create the soundtrack of ancient Egypt after sunset. There are no engines, no electric lights, no distant traffic, only wind, water, animals, human voices, and silence. A great deal of silence. For many modern people, such quietness would feel unusual. For ancient Egyptians, it was simply part of life. Night belonged to stillness. Night belonged to rest. In larger towns, some activity continues after dark. Guards remain at their posts. Certain workers perform evening duties. Travelers may arrive late. Religious ceremonies occasionally continue into nighttime hours. Yet compared to daylight, the pace is greatly reduced. Most people seek sleep. They need it. Tomorrow's labor is already waiting. A builder lies down upon a woven mat. His muscles ache from lifting stone. The effort of the day remains inside his body. As he closes his eyes, he feels the relief of stillness. No more carrying. No more lifting. No more walking beneath the sun. Just rest. Nearby, a farmer prepares for sleep. His children are already asleep. Their breathing is slow and steady. The room feels peaceful. Outside, the village has become almost silent. The farmer listens briefly to the sounds of night. Then he settles onto his bed. Sleep arrives quickly. Physical labor often brings deep sleep. The body welcomes recovery. The same scene repeats across countless homes. Families settling down. Lamps extinguished. Conversations ending. Eyes closing. The kingdom itself seems to grow quiet. Yet even during these peaceful hours, some people remain awake. Night fishermen move cautiously along sections of the river. Temple attendants perform duties. Watchmen observe streets and storage areas. Their footsteps echo softly through the darkness. The night belongs to them for a little while. A watchman walks beside a wall illuminated by moonlight. His pace is slow. The air feels cooler now. Much of the day's heat has disappeared. Above him, stars fill the sky. The sight never grows old. Generation after generation has looked upward and seen the same lights. Kings have seen them. Farmers have seen them. Builders, scribes, merchants, and servants have all shared the same sky. The stars connect everyone. Rich and poor. Powerful and ordinary. They shine equally upon all. Along the Nile, moonlight dances upon moving water. The river seems almost silver. Reeds sway gently near the shore. A faint breeze moves across the landscape. The cool air feels welcome after the long day. Some homes remain awake for a little longer. A mother comforts a restless child. An elderly man sits quietly outside his doorway. A fisherman repairs a section of net by lamplight. These final activities unfold without hurry. Soon they too will end. The night grows deeper. Hours pass quietly. The village settles into complete stillness. Dogs sleep. Animals rest. Cooking fires fade into darkness. Only occasional sounds disturb the silence. A distant bird. A rustling breeze. The gentle movement of water. The ancient world seems peaceful now. The day's burdens have been set aside. The fields rest beneath the stars. The roads lie empty. The workshops stand silent. Tools wait patiently for morning. And throughout Egypt, tired workers sleep beneath mud brick roofs, recovering from another day shaped by the Nile, the sun, and the endless rhythm of ordinary life. Far above them, the stars continue their slow journey across the heavens. And somewhere beyond the eastern horizon, another dawn is already making its quiet approach. Long before the first light touches the eastern horizon, the Nile Valley rests in deep darkness. Most homes remain silent. The oil lamps have burned low or gone out entirely. The cooking fires from the evening meal have faded into ash. The narrow streets between mud brick homes lie empty beneath the stars. The world feels suspended. Neither yesterday nor tomorrow seems fully real. There is only the cool darkness before dawn. The air at this hour is often the most comfortable of the entire day. The heat that ruled the afternoon has finally released its grip. A gentle breeze moves across the river and slips quietly through open doorways and small windows. Reeds along the shoreline sway softly. The Nile continues flowing. It never stops. While entire villages sleep, the river remains awake. Its waters move steadily through the darkness, carrying silt, fish, boats, and reflections of distant stars. For thousands of years, people have built their lives around this river. Children have been born beside it. Families have grown beside it. Old people have spent their final days beside it. The river witnesses everything. Tonight is no different. In a village not far from the riverbank, a fisherman wakes before the others. His body has learned this habit through years of repetition. He opens his eyes and listens. The house is quiet. His family still sleeps. Outside, only the faint sounds of insects and moving water can be heard. For a moment he remains still. His muscles feel heavy from yesterday's labor. His shoulders ache slightly. His hands are rough from rope and net. Yet the day is already beginning. Slowly, he rises. The floor beneath his feet feels cool. He moves carefully through the darkness so he does not disturb the sleeping family around him. Soon he steps outside. The stars remain bright overhead. The village appears peaceful. Nearby homes sit quietly beneath the night sky. No smoke rises from ovens. No children run through the streets. No merchants call out in the marketplace. Only silence. The fisherman walks toward the river. His sandals make soft sounds against the dusty path. He knows every step of this journey. He has walked it hundreds of times. Perhaps thousands. The routine requires no thought. His feet know the way. At the shoreline, other fishermen have also arrived. Dark figures move quietly near the boats. There is little conversation. Words seem unnecessary at this hour. Everyone understands the task ahead. Nets are checked. Ropes are gathered. Wooden boats are pushed gently into the water. The river accepts them without complaint. Soon the vessels drift away from shore. The fishermen disappear into the darkness. Behind them, the village remains asleep. Yet not everyone rests. Farther inland, a baker is already awake. The preparation of bread begins long before sunrise. The work requires time. Grain must be processed. Dough must be prepared. Ovens must be heated. The baker kneels beside a grinding stone. The familiar scraping sound fills the room. Back and forth. Back and forth. The motion is slow but steady. Many hours of daily life in Egypt are filled with repetitive actions like these. Grinding grain. Weaving cloth. Mixing clay. Digging channels. Pulling nets. Writing records. The work is rarely dramatic. Yet it shapes every day. It shapes every life. As the baker continues working, a faint gray glow begins appearing far in the east. Night is slowly loosening its hold. The stars remain visible, but some have begun to fade. The world prepares itself for another sunrise. Along the riverbanks, birds begin to stir. Soft calls emerge from the reeds. Wings flutter. Small creatures hidden within the vegetation awaken. The natural world follows its own schedule. No official commands it. No ruler controls it. Morning arrives because morning always arrives. The people of Egypt have learned to move alongside these rhythms. They rise when the light returns. They work when conditions allow. They rest when darkness falls. Life follows patterns older than memory. Inside homes throughout the valley, families begin waking. One child opens sleepy eyes. Another turns over and pulls a linen cloth closer. Parents sit up slowly. The body often resists the first moments of waking. Muscles remain stiff. The mind lingers in dreams. But responsibilities wait outside. There is always work to be done. A mother stands and begins preparing the household for the day. Her tasks are numerous. Some are large. Many are small. Together they fill nearly every hour. Water must be gathered. Food must be prepared. Children must be cared for. Clothing may need repair. Storage jars require attention. The home itself demands constant maintenance. Mud brick houses are practical and durable, but they are not effortless. Dust enters. Materials wear down. Repairs become necessary. Like everything else in Egypt, homes require steady care. The first sunlight finally appears. Its arrival is gentle. Golden light spills across the eastern horizon. Palm trees emerge from shadow. The Nile catches the light and begins to glow. The transformation is gradual. The darkness does not vanish all at once. Instead, it retreats slowly. Minute by minute. Field by field. Street by street. Morning unfolds across the land. Farmers step outside and study the sky. Many instinctively judge the day ahead. Will it be especially hot? Will wines arrive from the desert? Will conditions remain calm? Experience teaches people to observe small details. Their survival often depends upon it. A farmer who ignores the environment soon learns difficult lessons. Nature rewards attention. The farmer gathers his tools. Nearby neighbors do the same. Soon groups of workers begin moving toward the fields. The paths fill with quiet footsteps. The village is awake now. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Children help carry supplies. Animals become active. Voices drift through the air. The stillness of night has ended. The rhythm of labor has returned. As workers leave for the fields, merchants begin preparing their stalls. Marketplaces remain relatively quiet this early. Most customers have not yet arrived. Still, preparation takes time. Goods must be arranged. Storage containers must be opened. Inventories must be checked. A merchant carefully examines baskets of dates. Another inspects jars of oil. Nearby, cloth is unfolded and displayed. Every item represents effort. Nothing appears magically. Someone grew it. Someone harvested it. Someone transported it. Someone traded for it. The marketplace serves as a meeting point for many different kinds of labor. The connections are everywhere. Often invisible. Yet essential. In a nearby workshop, a potter begins his day. The clay feels cool beneath his hands. Soon it will warm beneath the growing sun. For now, the morning remains pleasant. The wheel begins turning. The potter focuses on the spinning clay. His fingers guide its shape with practiced ease. A jar emerges. Then another. Then another. Each vessel resembles countless others produced throughout Egypt. Simple objects. Useful objects. Objects that rarely survive in stories. Yet they fill daily life. People drink from them. Store food inside them. Transport goods with them. Without such ordinary items, daily routines would become much more difficult. The potter understands this. Even if nobody celebrates his work, he knows it matters. Across the valley, thousands of people perform similar tasks. Most names will never be recorded. Most faces will never appear in monuments. History often remembers rulers. But daily life depends upon ordinary people. The farmer watering crops. The woman baking bread. The fisherman repairing nets. The child carrying water. The servant sweeping floors. The carpenter shaping wood. The labor of countless individuals supports the entire world around them. As the morning advances, sunlight grows stronger. The coolness of dawn begins fading. Workers remove extra layers of clothing. Sweat appears once again. The familiar warmth settles across the landscape. The day is fully underway. Fields become busy with movement. Tools rise and fall. Irrigation channels carry water. Voices call across rows of crops. Dust lifts into the air beneath moving feet. The work feels endless at times. Because in many ways it is. Crops must be tended repeatedly. Animals require daily care. Homes need constant maintenance. Food preparation never truly ends. Every completed task eventually returns. The cycle continues. Yet there is comfort in this predictability. People know what tomorrow will require. They know where they belong. They know what must be done. Routine creates structure. Structure creates stability. Along the Nile, a boat glides quietly through the morning light. Its passengers watch the shoreline pass by. Villages appear and disappear. Palm groves rise above the riverbank. Children wave from the shore. Fishermen continue their work. The river connects them all. A traveler moving along the Nile witnesses countless small scenes of daily life. A woman washing clothing near the water. A farmer leading a donkey. Workers carrying baskets. Children chasing each other between houses. None of these moments seem important individually. Yet together they create the living heart of Egypt. Not the temples. Not the palaces. Not the tombs. The people. The routines. The habits repeated every day beneath the sun. And as another morning unfolds across the Nile Valley, those habits continue once more. The river flows. The bread bakes. The fields grow. The workshops hum with activity. And countless ordinary lives move gently forward beneath the widening light of a new Egyptian day. The morning settles comfortably across the Nile Valley. The sun has climbed above the horizon now, but it has not yet reached the fierce heights of midday. For a little while, the air remains pleasant. Workers take advantage of these precious hours. Energy is higher. Movements feel lighter. The day's greatest heat still waits somewhere ahead. Across the fields, farmers continue their labor. The sound of tools carries softly through the morning air. A wooden hoe breaks apart dry soil. Water moves through irrigation channels. Voices drift from one section of farmland to another. Nothing is hurried. The work demands patience. Every crop grows according to its own rhythm. No amount of wishing can make grain ripen faster. No amount of effort can force a plant to ignore the seasons. The people of Egypt understand this deeply. Their lives depend upon accepting the pace of nature. A farmer pauses beside a narrow canal. The water glides past his sandals. For a moment, he simply watches it. The movement is calming. The Nile and its branches bring life wherever they go. Without water, the fields would become silent stretches of dry earth. With water, they become places of growth. Green shoots rise from the soil. Birds gather nearby. Animals find food. Entire communities survive. The farmer kneels and adjusts a small section of the channel. The task is simple. Yet it matters. A slight change in water flow can affect an entire field. Small actions often carry great importance in daily life. Nearby, another worker leads a donkey loaded with baskets. The animal moves slowly beneath the growing warmth of the morning. Its pace remains steady. Dust rises gently from the path. The baskets contain supplies needed elsewhere in the village. Everything is connected. The harvest depends on tools. The tools depend on craftsmen. The craftsmen depend on food. The food depends on farmers. Each person supports another. The entire world of ancient Egypt rests upon countless invisible connections. Back in the village, the morning marketplace grows busier. Merchants greet arriving customers. The narrow streets fill with movement. Footsteps echo between walls. Donkeys carry goods through crowded spaces. Children weave between adults. The smell of bread mixes with the scent of fresh vegetables. Voices rise and fall in gentle conversation. A merchant arranges onions in neat rows. Nearby, another carefully measures grain. Transactions occur throughout the morning. Some are large. Most are small. A handful of vegetables. A jar of oil. A length of cloth. Simple exchanges that help daily life continue. The market serves another purpose as well. It allows people to remain connected. News travels quickly through these crowded spaces. People discuss crops. They discuss weather. They discuss relatives living in nearby villages. They discuss repairs, festivals, and local concerns. The marketplace is not merely a place of trade. It is also a place of community. Under the growing sunlight, life flows through its familiar channels. Not far away, inside a modest home, a woman continues the endless work of maintaining a household. The morning meal has already been prepared. Children have eaten. The floor has been swept. Yet many tasks remain. There are always tasks. She checks storage jars. Some contain grain. Others hold oil or dried foods. Each must be monitored carefully. Food security matters deeply. A damaged container can lead to waste. A shortage can create hardship. The household depends upon planning. The woman examines each jar with practiced attention. Years of experience guide her decisions. She knows how much grain remains. She knows how long supplies should last. She knows what must be preserved for the future. These forms of knowledge rarely appear in official records. Yet they are essential. Entire families rely upon them. Outside, sunlight brightens the rooftops. The village hums with activity. Children assist where they can. A young girl carries a small basket. A boy gathers reeds. Another child helps feed animals. Not every task is difficult. Many are simple. Yet together they teach responsibility. Children learn by observing adults. They learn through repetition. They learn through participation. Daily habits pass from one generation to the next. Knowledge moves quietly through families. No grand ceremony announces it. the lessons simply become part of life. Farther along the river, a group of fishermen works beneath the warming sun. Their boats drift through calm water. The river surface sparkles brightly. The fishermen move carefully. A net is lowered. Time passes. Then the net is raised once more. Patience remains one of the most valuable skills along the Nile. Fish do not appear on command. The river rewards those willing to wait. One fisherman studies the water closely. Years spent on the river have sharpened his awareness. He notices subtle movements, changes in current, the behavior of birds, small details invisible to others. Experience teaches people how to read their environment. The Nile speaks in quiet ways. Those who spend enough time upon its waters learn to listen. As the morning advances, workshops become increasingly active. The sounds of craftsmanship spread through towns and villages. A carpenter smooths a wooden surface. A stone worker shapes material for construction. A weaver guides thread through a loom. A potter continues turning clay into useful forms. These activities fill the air with a steady rhythm. The sounds are neither loud nor chaotic. Instead, they blend together into something almost soothing. The rhythm of work. The rhythm of ordinary life. Inside one weaving workshop, sunlight filters through a small opening. Dust particles drift through the beam of light. A woman sits before a loom. Her hands move with confidence. Thread passes through thread. Patterns slowly emerge. The process requires attention. A moment of carelessness can create mistakes. Yet years of practice have made the motions familiar. The work flows naturally. Outside, the village continues its morning routines. Inside, the loom creates its own quiet world. The repeated movement becomes almost hypnotic. Across Egypt, countless people spend their days performing similar actions. Again and again. Hour after hour. Day after day. The repetition is not unpleasant. It provides structure. It provides predictability. The familiar tasks of life offer a sense of stability in an uncertain world. As the sun climbs higher, shadows begin shrinking. The warmth increases noticeably. Workers feel it on their skin. The coolness of early morning becomes a memory. The day is entering a different phase now. In the fields, farmers drink water and continue working. Sweat appears more quickly. The soil feels warmer beneath their feet. Yet the labor continues. The crops cannot wait. Neither can the seasons. The cycle of agriculture demands attention. One season leads into another. Planting leads into growing. Growing leads into harvesting. Harvesting leads into preparation. Then the cycle begins once more. The pattern has repeated for generations. Most people cannot imagine life any other way. Near one field, a small group of workers pauses briefly beneath the shade of a tree. The shade is thin but welcome. They sit quietly. Some drink water. Others simply rest. Their conversation remains gentle. No one wastes energy. The day is still young. Many hours remain. A breeze passes through the branches above. For a moment, everyone enjoys the cooler air. Then the workers rise and return to their duties. Rest is important. But work awaits. Along a dusty road, a traveling merchant approaches a village. His donkey carries goods collected from different locations. The journey has been long. Travel requires endurance. Roads can be rough. Heat can be exhausting. Yet movement between communities remains important. Ideas travel. Goods travel. Information travels. The merchant brings more than products. He brings stories, news, observations from distant places. When he arrives, people may ask questions. What have you seen? How are conditions elsewhere? Has the river been favorable? Are crops growing well? These conversations help connect different communities across Egypt. Even distant places feel a little closer through shared information. The sun continues rising. The sky becomes brighter. The heat deepens gradually. Birds seek shade. Animals slow their movements. Workers adjust naturally. Nobody needs to announce the change. Everyone feels it. The body understands. The day is moving toward its hottest hours. Yet life continues. A mother kneads dough. A fisherman repairs a net. A carpenter shapes wood. A child carries water. A farmer tends crops. A merchant arranges goods. A scribe records information. The kingdom functions because these countless routines continue without interruption. Most of the people performing them will never become famous. No monuments will preserve their names. No statues will honor their efforts. Yet their labor forms the foundation beneath everything else. Without them, the grand structures of Egypt could not exist. Without them, the fields would fall silent. The markets would empty. The workshops would close. The river would still flow, but the human world surrounding it would fade. Fortunately, on this morning, as on so many mornings before, the routines continue. The bread is baking. The nets are drying. The tools are working. The water is flowing. And beneath the widening sunlight of another Egyptian day, ordinary lives move steadily forward beside the eternal Nile. By the time the sun reaches higher into the sky, the Nile Valley begins to feel familiar in its discomfort. The morning's softness has mostly passed. What remains is warmth that grows steadily heavier with each hour. It settles into walls, into soil, into skin. Still, life does not stop. It only adjusts. Across villages and towns, people continue moving through their routines with quiet acceptance. The farmer in the fields bends again over the earth. His movements are slower now than they were earlier in the morning. Not from hesitation, but from endurance. The body learns its limits in this heat. It teaches patience. It teaches restraint. Nearby, irrigation channels still carry water. The surface glows faintly under the sun. Small ripples move through narrow paths carved into the land. The sound is soft. Almost like breathing. Water reaches crops that depend entirely on these careful roots. Without guidance, it would scatter and disappear into dry soil. So hands continue shaping its direction. Mud walls are adjusted. Small barriers are pressed into place. Simple actions. Repetitive actions. Necessary actions. In another section of the fields, a group of workers moves in a slow rhythm. Their shadows are shorter now. The sun stands higher above them. Occasionally, someone straightens their back. A brief pause. A breath. A glance toward the sky. Then the work continues. Not because it is easy, but because it is expected. Because the season demands it. Because life depends on it. Far from the fields, inside a shaded workshop, the air feels slightly cooler. Not truly cool, but less harsh than outside. A stonemason continues shaping blocks meant for construction. His tools strike the surface with steady, controlled force. Each impact produces a small cloud of dust. It drifts upward slowly before disappearing into the light. The work is repetitive, but precise. Each stone must fit into a larger structure. Each piece depends on the others. Nothing stands alone in the building process. A wall is never just one stone. It is thousands of small decisions. Thousands of careful adjustments. Across the workshop floor, finished blocks rest in quiet rows. Some will be transported later in the day. Others will wait until tomorrow. Time moves differently in construction work. There is always something before. And always something after. Nearby, a carpenter wipes sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. Wood shavings lie scattered across the floor. The smell of cut timber lingers in the air. He checks a plank carefully before making another cut. Even in heat, attention cannot be relaxed. Mistakes in woodwork carry consequences. A misaligned piece can affect an entire structure later. So the carpenter continues with patience. Slow breath. Steady hands. Measured movement. Outside, the market has entered its busiest hours. Shaded stalls are filled with people now. The earlier quiet has transformed into a gentle crowd. Not chaotic. Not overwhelming. Just full. Full of movement. Full of exchange. Full of life. Merchants call softly to passing customers. Goods are displayed with care. Grain, oil, cloth, tools, pottery, and small household items are all arranged in familiar patterns. A woman pauses at one stall, examining a piece of woven fabric. Her fingers test its texture. The merchant waits patiently. There is no urgency in his posture. He knows decisions take time. Nearby, a man weighs grain using simple balances. The scale tilts slightly. Then settles. Then adjusts again. Accuracy matters. Trust matters. A fair exchange ensures future business. And so the process continues with careful attention. Around them, conversations blend together. Not loud. Not sharp. Just constant. A soft human hum beneath the heat. Children move through the market edges. Some carry small items for their families. Others simply observe everything around them. The market teaches without trying to teach. It shows how goods move. How people trade. How needs are met through cooperation. In this way, even young children begin to understand the flow of daily life. Not through instruction, but through presence. Near the river, fishermen return briefly to shore. The sun reflects intensely on the water now. It is harder to look directly at the surface. Boats drift into calmer edges where shade from reeds offers slight relief. Fish are sorted carefully. Smaller catches are separated from larger ones. Some will be sold immediately. Some will be preserved. The work is methodical. Hands move quickly despite the heat. Water drips from nets onto the riverbank. Each drop disappears into the sand almost instantly. A fisherman sits for a moment on the edge of his boat. His chest rises and falls slowly. The river continues moving beside him. Always moving. Never stopping. He looks out across the water. This same river has carried countless generations. Before him. And before them. And before those he will never know. The Nile is older than memory. And yet it remains part of every present moment. Back in the village, the heat of midday reaches its full presence. The land feels still. Not silent. But paused. Movement becomes more deliberate. Steps are shorter. Breathing is slower. People choose shade whenever possible. Walls. Trees. Doorways. anything that offers even a narrow escape from direct sunlight. Inside homes, rooms grow dimmer but more comfortable. A woman rests briefly on a woven mat. Her work will continue later. But for now, she allows herself a pause. A child sleeps nearby. Small breaths. Soft and steady. The warmth of the room encourages rest. Even short rest becomes valuable during these hours. Outside, a man repairs a tool under the shade of a wall. His hands move without hurry. He checks each part carefully. Replaces what is needed. Then tests it again. The object must be ready for later use. Tools are not optional in this world. They are extensions of labor itself. As the sun holds its position overhead, even animals adapt. Donkeys stand in stillness near shaded areas. Goats gather in small clusters beneath trees. Birds remain quiet, resting between bursts of movement. The entire landscape seems to breathe more slowly. Yet life does not stop. It simply narrows. Focuses. Conserves energy for the hours ahead. A traveler passes through the edge of a village. His movement is slow but steady. He carries a small bundle. His journey likely began earlier in the day. He may be heading toward another settlement along the river. Travel in this heat requires discipline. Frequent pauses. Careful attention to water and shade. The Nile remains his guide. Always nearby. Even when not visible, its presence shapes direction. As he walks, he passes workers resting briefly under a tree. They exchange a quiet nod. No long conversation. Just acknowledgement. Shared understanding of the day's difficulty. Then each continues on their own path. Time in the afternoon feels different. Less structured. More stretched. Hours seem longer. Yet they still pass. Slowly. Quietly. Inevitably. Inside workshops, work continues at reduced pace. Some craftsmen step outside briefly to breathe cooler air under shade. Others remain inside, maintaining steady but slower rhythm. No one rushes. Rushing wastes energy. And energy must be preserved. Especially now. As the sun begins its gradual descent once again, a subtle shift returns to the land. Not sudden. Not dramatic. But noticeable. The intensity softens slightly. Shadows begin to lengthen again. People feel it before they see it. A change in the air. A loosening of heat. A quiet promise that evening will return. Workers begin preparing for the final stretch of the day. Not finishing yet. But preparing. The farmer straightens once more in the field. The potter checks his remaining clay. The merchant counts remaining goods. The scribe reviews final records. The fisherman watches the river's shifting light. Each understands what comes next. The return home. The gathering of families. The slow easing into night. And so, beneath the unhurried descent of the sun, the rhythm of Egypt continues. Steady. Familiar. Endless. The river flows beside it all, unchanged. And life, in all its ordinary motion, moves gently forward once more. The afternoon begins to soften again, slowly, almost without notice. The light over the Nile shifts in a way that people recognize without needing to look directly at the sky. The heat is still present, but it no longer feels as sharp as before. It loses its edge, little by little, as if the world itself is exhaling after holding its breath for too long. Across the land, work continues, but something inside the rhythm begins to change. Not in action, but in feeling. In the fields, farmers notice it first in their bodies. The weight of the sun on their backs becomes slightly easier to bear. The soil beneath their feet feels less harsh. Even the air, still warm, carries a faint softness that was not there at midday. A man pauses briefly, leaning on his tool. He does not speak. He only looks toward the horizon for a moment, where the brightness has begun to shift in tone. Then he continues. Because the day is not finished yet. But it is no longer at its hardest point. Along irrigation channels, water still moves in steady lines. The sound is quiet, almost hidden beneath the rustle of fields and distant movement of people. Someone adjusts a small barrier again, shaping the flow with practiced hands. The action is simple, but it carries the weight of responsibility. A small mistake here could affect an entire section of crops. Nearby, another worker carries bundles of harvested plants. The load rests across his shoulders. His steps are slow but balanced. Dust rises gently with each movement, then settles back into the earth. Everything in this hour feels slightly suspended. Not fast. Not slow. Just continuing. In the village, the market begins to awaken once more as the heat eases. Stalls that were half quiet during midday now feel more active again. People return from fields and workshops. The shaded paths fill with movement. The sound of conversation grows a little stronger, as if voices themselves have more energy in the cooling air. A merchant rearranges goods that have shifted during the long day. He smooths cloth. He restacks jars. He checks the remaining grain. His hands move with routine familiarity. Nothing about it feels new. Across from him, a woman examines a bundle of herbs. She holds it close, studying it carefully before making a decision. The merchant waits without pressure. Time is not something to be rushed here. It unfolds in small exchanges, in quiet pauses, in mutual understanding. A child stands nearby, watching everything. The market is not just a place of trade for children. It is a place of learning. Every sound, every exchange, every movement becomes part of memory. Farther along the river, boats begin returning more frequently now. The Nile carries them gently toward shore. The surface reflects the softening sky, shifting from bright glare to something warmer, more muted. The fishermen aboard move with familiar coordination. Nets are gathered. Wooden poles are lifted. Baskets are arranged carefully to prevent damage. There is fatigue in their movements, but also relief. The day's hardest hours are behind them. One fisherman ties his boat to a post along the bank. The rope tightens with a soft pull. He remains seated for a moment afterward, letting stillness settle into his body. His hands rest on his knees. His eyes follow the water. The river continues as always. Unhurried. Unchanged. Constant. He thinks nothing in particular. Or perhaps many things at once. Thoughts that do not need words. Thoughts that belong only to the rhythm of the day. Behind him, other boats arrive. One by one. Each carrying the quiet evidence of labor. Fish. Nets. Wet wood. The smell of the river. Back in the village, homes begin to feel more active again as families prepare for the evening. Smoke rises in thin streams from cooking fires that are being lit once more. The scent of bread begins to spread again, familiar and comforting. Pots are placed over heat. Grain is measured. Water is poured. The preparation for the evening meal begins in a calm, practiced sequence. Inside one home, a woman kneels beside a low surface, shaping dough with steady hands. Her movements are slow but sure. The texture of the dough changes under pressure, becoming smooth and ready. She does not hurry. There is no need to. The evening is still far enough away to allow patience. A child sits nearby, watching quietly. The child is tired from the day's small tasks, from walking, from helping, from simply being awake in the heat. Their eyes drip downward occasionally, then rise again. The rhythm of the room is gentle. Outside, the light continues its slow transformation. The harshness of midday is gone now. What remains is something softer, more forgiving. Shadows grow longer again, stretching across walls and paths. Trees regain their presence as shapes instead of just outlines. The river reflects more color now, not just brightness. Workers begin their return home in greater numbers. From fields, from workshops, from riverbanks, from market edges. They move along familiar paths, the same ones they have walked countless times before. Each step feels slightly lighter than it did earlier in the day, even though exhaustion still lives in their bodies. A carpenter carries his tools over his shoulder. A farmer walks beside him for part of the way. They do not speak much. There is no need. The shared silence is enough. Further ahead, children run briefly along a narrow path, their energy returning with the cooler air. Their voices rise for a moment, then fade as they turn a corner toward their homes. The village slowly gathers itself again. Not in urgency, but in reunion. Inside homes, lamps are prepared even before darkness arrives. Small oil containers are checked. Wicks are adjusted. People prepare for the transition from daylight to night without interruption. Life does not pause for this change. It flows through it. As the sun lowers further, the sky begins to change in deeper tones. Gold becomes softer, then warmer, then slowly begins to shift toward orange again. The horizon feels closer now, as if the sky itself is gently descending toward the earth. Along the river, reeds sway lightly in the growing evening breeze. Birds move in small groups toward resting places. Their calls are fewer now, less frequent, as if even sound is beginning to rest. A fisherman walking home carries a small bundle in one hand. In the other, he holds nothing. Just the weight of the day behind him. His steps are unhurried. He passes familiar landmarks without looking closely at them anymore. He knows them too well to need attention. A stone wall. A cluster of trees. A bend in the path where the ground shifts slightly. All of it becomes part of a quiet journey back. Back to food. Back to family. Back to rest. In the fields, the final movements of the day continue. Not work of beginning. Not work of full labor. But work of ending. Gathering tools. Checking irrigation one last time. Preparing for the night so nothing is left undone. These final actions are small, but they matter. They close the day gently, like a hand slowly lowering a cloth over something carefully kept. The sun nears the edge of the world. Its light stretches across everything one last time, long and soft. The Nile reflects it in a final shimmer, as if holding onto the day before letting it go. And slowly, across the land, the people of Egypt begin to return fully to their homes, where evening waits with quiet meals, dim lamps, and the deep rest that will carry them into another tomorrow beside the endless river. Evening arrives in Egypt the way it always does. Not suddenly. Not with force. But like a slow release of light, as if the sky is gently loosening its hold on the world. The sun lowers behind the horizon, and the Nile Valley responds in quiet stages. First, the brightness softens. Then the heat begins to retreat from the ground. Finally, the long shadows stretch fully across fields, roads, and rooftops, as if the land is stretching itself after a long day of labor. Work does not stop all at once. It dissolves. In the fields, the final tasks are completed with careful hands. A farmer inspects a section of irrigation one last time, making sure the water will continue to flow correctly through the night. Another gathers his tools, brushing dust from worn wood and metal. Movements are slower now, not from weakness, but from release. The urgency of midday has faded completely. The body understands what the mind already accepts. The day is ending. Along the paths that lead back to villages, small groups of workers walk together. Their silhouettes stretch long over the ground, merging with the fading light. There is little conversation. The silence between them is not empty. It is full of shared fatigue, shared understanding, shared relief. Every step carries them further away from labor and closer to rest. At the edge of a settlement, the market begins its final phase of activity. This is not the busy urgency of earlier hours. It is something calmer, slower, more settled. Merchants prepare to close or reduce their stalls. Some goods are carefully wrapped or covered. Others are left for the next day. A few last exchanges take place, but without pressure. There is no rush to complete transactions. Only quiet decisions. A woman places a small bundle of goods into her basket and adjusts the strap on her shoulder. The merchant nods once. No words are needed. The exchange is complete. Nearby, a child sits on the ground beside a parent, watching the final movements of the marketplace with half-tired eyes. The day has been long for small bodies. The sounds around them feel distant now, as if softened by exhaustion. One by one, people begin to leave. The market slowly empties. Not abruptly. Just gradually. Like water draining from a shallow bowl. Along the river, the Nile reflects the last full colors of the evening sky. Deep orange fades into soft red, then into a cooler tone that hints at night. Boats are tied securely along the shore. Nets hang to dry. Wooden frames rest against the ground. The river itself continues without change, carrying the reflection of the sky even as the sky itself transforms. A fisherman stands quietly near his boat, looking out over the water for a final moment. His hands rest loosely at his sides. His shoulders feel heavy, but not strained. The work is done for now. Tomorrow will bring the same rhythm again. And he accepts that without resistance. Beside him, another man lifts a bundle from the boat and sets it down on the riverbank. The motion is slow and practiced. No unnecessary effort is wasted. The body has already given everything it needed to give for the day. They begin walking home together. Their footsteps follow the familiar path away from the water. Behind them, the river remains. Always remaining. In the village, homes glow softly with the first lamps of evening. Inside, rooms are filled with warm, dim light. Shadows move gently across walls made of earth and straw. The smell of cooking returns again, stronger now that many families are preparing their evening meal at nearly the same time. Bread is broken and shared. Stews are stirred. Simple dishes are placed on woven mats or low tables. Families gather in small circles. The day is spoken about quietly, not in detail, but in fragments. A mention of heat. A comment about work completed. A note about something seen or heard. These small exchanges tie the day together before it ends. Children lean closer to parents. Their energy fades into stillness. Eyes grow heavier. The warmth of food and the safety of home make sleep feel close, even before it arrives. Outside, the sky continues to darken. Stars begin to appear again, one by one, as if the night is returning them to the world. The river becomes a deeper shade, reflecting less color and more shape. The breeze grows slightly cooler. Reeds along the shore move softly, brushing against one another with a faint sound that blends into the evening. In one home, a man sits near the doorway for a moment before going inside. He watches the village settle. He watches lamps flicker. He listens to the fading sounds of movement around him. Nothing in particular holds his attention. It is simply the feeling of the day ending. Then he stands and steps inside. Elsewhere, a woman finishes arranging items for the night. She checks the door. She adjusts a cloth. She ensures that everything is in place for sleep. These final gestures are quiet, habitual, almost automatic. They come from years of repetition. In the distance, a lone dog moves between buildings, then disappears into shadow. Its presence is brief, unimportant, yet part of the rhythm of nightfall. Soon, the village becomes still. Not entirely silent, but settled. The sounds that remain are soft and sparse. A low voice speaking inside a home. The faint movement of water near the riverbank. The occasional rustle of wind passing through dry reeds. Above it all, the sky is now fully dark. The stars are bright again. Unchanging. Patient. The same stars that watched over the heat of midday now watch over the coolness of night. They do not move quickly. They do not hurry. They simply remain, as they always have. Inside homes, lamps are slowly dimmed. One by one. Until only faint light remains in a few places. Then even those disappear. Sleep begins to spread across the Nile Valley the way morning once did. Not with sound, but with quiet surrender. A farmer lies down on his mat, feeling the heaviness of his body settle fully into rest. A fisherman closes his eyes beside his family. A scribe rests his hands after long hours of careful writing. A child breathes slowly in the safety of sleep. The entire land begins to soften into stillness. And the Nile continues its endless movement through the night, carrying darkness, reflections, and time itself forward without pause. Everything slows. Everything quiets. And Egypt, once again, rests beneath the vast and patient sky. Night settles more deeply now over the Nile Valley. What remains of the evening has already softened into stillness, and what follows feels even quieter, as if the world is slowly folding inward on itself. The air cools gradually, carrying away the last memory of daytime heat from the stones, the fields, and the rooftops of mud brick homes. In this darkness, Egypt feels different. Not empty. Just resting. The river continues its movement, almost invisible now except where faint starlight touches its surface. It reflects the sky in broken pieces, shifting gently with every current. Along its banks, reeds stand in quiet clusters, barely moving. The wind is gentle, almost careful, as if it does not want to disturb anything. Inside the villages, sleep has spread everywhere. Homes that were once filled with cooking smells and voices now hold only slow breathing and still bodies wrapped in simple cloth. The lamps have gone out. The shadows have settled. Even the smallest sounds feel distant, like they belong to another world. A child turns slightly in sleep. A hand relaxes. A cloth shifts. Then stillness returns again. In one house, a farmer lies on his side, facing the cool wall of his home. His body carries the memory of the field, even now. The ache in his shoulders has not disappeared, but it has softened. It no longer demands attention. It simply exists, as part of him, as part of the day that has already passed. Beside him, his family sleeps quietly. Their breathing rises and falls in slow rhythm. The room is dark enough that shapes are only suggestions, not clear forms. Yet even in this darkness, there is comfort. The walls hold warmth from the day. The floor is steady beneath them. The house feels solid, familiar, protective. Outside, the village is almost completely still. Only occasional movement breaks the surface of the night. A distant animal shifting in its resting place. A soft rustle of wind passing between buildings. The faint sound of water near the river's edge. These sounds do not interrupt sleep. They belong to it. Farther along the Nile, a small group of night fishermen moves carefully across the water. Their presence is quiet, almost invisible. The boats glide without urgency, guided by experience rather than sight. In this hour, sound matters more than vision. The men listen closely to the water, to the movement beneath it, to the subtle signs that indicate where fish may gather. A net is lowered slowly. No splash is wasted. No motion is rushed. Everything is done with practiced patience. The river does not resist. It never does. It simply carries them forward as it always has, through darkness as much as daylight. One fisherman pauses, looking upward. The sky is vast above him, full of stars. It feels closer at night, though he knows it is not. The stars remain unchanged, distant, patient, observing the world below without judgment or care. They have seen countless nights like this one. Countless people moving quietly across the water, working, resting, surviving. He lowers his gaze again and continues. There is work still to be done before dawn returns. Back in the villages, the deeper hours of night bring an even stronger silence. This is the part of night when most living things settle fully into rest. When even thought becomes slow. When dreams begin to take the place of awareness. A mother in one home adjusts a blanket over a sleeping child without waking them. The movement is gentle, almost instinctive. She pauses for a moment afterward, simply standing in the dim quiet. Her eyes are open, but she is not truly thinking. It is a moment suspended between sleep and wakefulness. Then she lies down again. And the room returns to stillness. Elsewhere, an elderly man sits near the doorway of his home. He does not move much. He is not restless. He simply sits, listening to the night in a way that only those accustomed to long lives of routine can understand. The river is faint in the distance. The wind moves softly through dry grass. The world feels far away and close at the same time. After a while, he stands slowly and goes inside. The night continues. Time moves forward, but without urgency. In the fields, nothing moves except the wind. The crops rest in darkness, their growth paused but not stopped. The soil holds moisture gathered from earlier irrigation. The paths between rows are empty. Tools left behind earlier in the evening rest where they were placed. Everything waits for morning, without expectation. Even the earth feels like it is sleeping. Near the edge of a workshop district, a few small fires still burn low. These are not fires of labor now, but of necessity. A guard may warm himself briefly. A late traveler may pause before continuing. A craftsman finishing a final small task may sit near the fading glow of embers. But even these moments are temporary. Soon, they too will disappear into darkness. and the district will become still. The Nile, however, does not rest in the same way. It continues moving through night and day alike. Its surface changes constantly, even in the absence of light. It carries reflections of stars, of reeds, of distant shapes along its banks. It moves with a patience that feels almost ancient, as if time itself flows within it. People depend on this movement without needing to think about it. Water for crops, paths for boats, life for settlements. Everything connected to it continues because it continues. As the night grows deeper, even thought seems to slow across the land. Dreams become more present than waking life. Inside homes, breathing becomes steady and synchronized with the quiet rhythm of the world outside. The boundary between sleep and night feels thin, almost invisible. A fisherman dreams of water. A farmer dreams of fields. A scribe dreams of symbols that drift across pages like shadows. A child dreams of movement and light without knowing what they mean. The entire Nile Valley rests together, not as separate lives, but as a shared stillness beneath the same sky. Hours pass like this. Softly. Without interruption. Without notice. And then, somewhere far beyond the eastern horizon, the first hint of change begins again. It is not light yet. Not even color. Just a sense that the darkness is no longer completely still. The world is already preparing, quietly, for another return. But for now, Egypt remains in night. Held gently between yesterday and tomorrow. Resting beside the river that never stops moving. And breathing, slowly, in the calmest hours of the ancient world. The deepest part of the night holds everything in a quiet, steady stillness. It is the kind of silence that feels almost complete, as if the world has set itself down for rest and does not wish to be disturbed. Even the river seems quieter now, though it never truly stops. Its movement becomes something felt more than heard, like a distant presence passing through darkness. Across the Nile Valley, sleep continues without interruption. Homes remain closed and calm. The mud brick walls hold the warmth of the day inside them, slowly releasing it into the cool night air. Inside each home, bodies rest in simple positions, not shaped by comfort alone, but by habit built through years of repetition. A farmer sleeps deeply, his breathing slow and steady. The weight of the day no longer presses on him. His hands, which spent hours gripping tools and soil, are finally relaxed. His body has returned to stillness, as if it has been folded gently back into itself. Nearby, his family rests in the same quiet rhythm. The room is dark, but not unfamiliar. Darkness is a part of life here, not something to fear, only something to accept. It arrives each night and leaves each morning, as constant as the river's flow. Outside, the village is nearly motionless. The paths between homes are empty. The market streets are silent. The workshops are closed, tools resting where they were left, as if waiting patiently for the return of hands. Even the wind feels softer now, moving only occasionally through the reeds and trees, like a breath taken carefully so as not to disturb anything. At the river's edge, a lone fisherman remains awake. He sits quietly in his boat, listening more than watching. The night fishing continues in small, patient movements, guided by instinct and experience rather than light. The net rests in the water, drifting with the current. His hands remain still on the wooden edge of the boat. There is no urgency in this moment. Only awareness. The Nile moves beneath him, carrying small ripples of sound and motion that fade quickly into darkness. Occasionally, a fish breaks the surface somewhere in the distance, creating a soft disturbance that disappears almost immediately. The fisherman does not react quickly. He simply observes. Then waits again. Time feels different here. Not divided into hours or minutes, but into quiet stretches of patience. Above him, the sky remains full and open. Stars continue their slow journey across the heavens, unchanged by human movement below. They belong to a rhythm far older than any village or field. Their light is distant, steady, and calm, offering no answers, only presence. The fisherman glances upward once more, then returns his attention to the river. In the village, deeper sleep continues to spread. Even those who stirred briefly earlier in the night have now settled again. The elderly man who once sat by his doorway now lies still inside. The mother who adjusted a blanket earlier has drifted back into rest. Every home holds its own quiet world. Breathing becomes the only movement that matters. Slow, soft, even. In this hour, the Nile Valley feels unified in its silence, as if every life is part of a single resting body, breathing gently beneath the same night sky. Far from the riverbanks, the desert remains still and vast. It holds the night in a different way. Not soft like the river valley, but open and firm, shaped by wind and time. Sand lies undisturbed, forming quiet waves that do not change easily. Rocks rest where they have always rested. The emptiness feels complete, but not empty in truth. It is full of distance, full of space, full of silence that stretches far beyond sight. No footsteps cross it now. Only the memory of wind that passed earlier in the day. Back near the cultivated land, fields rest under the cool darkness. Crops do not move in any visible way, yet life continues within them. Roots hold steady in the soil. Moisture remains in the earth, slowly spreading where it is needed. Everything is paused, but not stopped. Waiting, but not inactive. The same applies to the people who tend them. Rest is part of the cycle. Just as much as labor. Just as much as waking. Inside homes, dreams continue to unfold quietly. They are not remembered in the moment of sleep. They simply happen. A fisherman dreams of water that is endless and still. A farmer dreams of fields that stretch farther than he has ever walked. A child dreams of light that moves without source or direction. These dreams pass through minds like soft currents, unnoticed and unrecorded. Outside, the night begins its final stretch. It is not yet morning, but something subtle is shifting. The darkness feels slightly less absolute than before. Not because it is fading quickly, but because it has reached its fullest depth. From this point, change will eventually begin again. Slowly. Naturally. Without announcement. The river continues its steady movement through it all. Carrying reflections of stars, reeds, and distant banks. Carrying the memory of the day that has passed. And carrying the quiet promise of the day that will come. In one final moment of stillness, the Nile Valley remains fully asleep. Villages resting. Fields quiet. Homes dark. People breathing gently beneath simple roofs. Everything held in balance between exhaustion and renewal. And somewhere beyond the horizon, just beyond what can be seen or felt clearly, the first hint of dawn waits patiently to return. The night begins to loosen its grip in the smallest, quietest way. It is not something that can be seen at first. It is something felt, like a change in the air that arrives before the sky itself is ready to show it. The darkness is still present, still deep, still covering the Nile Valley in its familiar calm. But it no longer feels endless. Somewhere far beyond the horizon, the world is preparing again. In the villages, sleep continues. Homes remain still and close, their walls holding soft shadows that barely move. The oil lamps are long extinguished. The final embers of evening fires have cooled into quiet ash. Everything that once gave light or warmth has now settled into rest. A farmer sleeps without shifting, his body heavy in the way only deep exhaustion can create. The work of the fields has become memory for the night. His breathing rises and falls in a steady rhythm that matches the stillness around him. Nearby, his family remains gathered in the same small space, close enough to share warmth, close enough to feel safe without needing words or movement. Outside, the village is silent. Not empty. Just resting. The paths between homes are untouched. The market stalls are still. The workshops remain dark, tools lying where they were left at the end of the day. Even the air feels settled, as if it has chosen not to move unless necessary. Along the river, the Nile continues its quiet passage. Its movement is gentle now, almost invisible without light. It carries reflections that no one is awake to see clearly. Stars fade slightly as they near the horizon of their own journey across the sky. Others remain bright, steady companions in the dark. The water flows without urgency. It never knows rest. It simply continues. On the river, a fisherman remains awake a little longer. His boat drifts slowly near the bank, held in place by a tied rope. His hands rest loosely now, no longer preparing nets or adjusting lines. The work of the night is nearly finished. There is a stillness in him that mirrors the world around him. He listens. Not for sound in the usual sense, but for change. A subtle difference in the movement of water. A faint shift in air. A quiet awareness that comes only after hours spent alone with the river. Above him, the sky begins to lose some of its deepest darkness. Not visibly at first, but gradually, the edges of the night soften. The fisherman notices this without needing to name it. He knows what it means. Soon, he will return to shore. Soon, others will begin to wake. Not yet, but soon. In the village, a few people begin to stir in the deepest part of sleep. Not fully awake. Not yet aware of morning. Just small movements, brief transitions between dream and rest. A hand shifts. A shoulder relaxes. A breath deepens. Then stillness returns again. These are the quiet thresholds of night, where sleep and waking nearly touch but do not yet meet. Farther inland, the fields remain motionless under the dark sky. Yet life continues within them in ways too slow to notice in a single moment. Moisture in the soil holds steady. Roots remain anchored. Seeds and plants rest in the cool earth, protected from the heat that will return later. Everything is patient. Everything is waiting. The desert beyond the fields remains unchanged. It holds its silence differently than the river valley does. More open. More distant. Its stillness feels larger, as if it stretches beyond thought. No movement interrupts it. No sound carries across it. It is a space that belongs fully to night. And yet even there, change is approaching in the same invisible way. Not rushing. Not arriving. Just becoming closer. Back in the village, a mother wakes briefly without fully opening her eyes. She listens for a moment. The room is quiet. The child beside her is still asleep. She adjusts her position slightly, then settles again. The moment passes. And sleep continues. In another home, an elderly man turns slowly in his rest. His body carries the weight of years, but in sleep that weight is softened. Time itself feels less heavy here. The night does not measure age. It only holds rest. Outside, the river keeps moving. Its surface now begins to hint at the faintest change in color, though darkness still dominates. The boundary between night and morning is not sharp. It is gradual, like ink slowly thinning in water. A single bird calls somewhere in the distance. Then silence returns. But it is a different silence than before. Slightly lighter. Slightly more open. The fisherman in his boat notices this too. He lifts his gaze toward the horizon again. Nothing is visible yet. No sun. No color. Only the suggestion that time is shifting forward. He begins preparing to return. His movements are slow, careful, familiar. He gathers what is needed. He secures what must be secured. The boat responds gently to each motion, as if it understands the end of the night's work. Nearby, the riverbank remains still. But not for long. In the village, the first signs of waking will soon appear. Not in full activity, but in small beginnings. A change in breathing. A shift of posture. A quiet awareness returning to bodies that have rested through the long hours of night. The cycle is preparing to turn again. As it always does. As it always has. For now, Egypt remains in the final softness of darkness. Between night and morning. Between rest and labor. Between silence and sound. And the Nile continues to move through it all, patient and unchanging, carrying the world gently toward another day. The first true hint of morning arrives without sound. It does not announce itself. It does not change the world in a single moment. Instead, it spreads slowly, as if the darkness is being gently thinned from within. The Nile Valley remains quiet, but something in the night has shifted. The deepest hours are ending. In the villages, most people still sleep. Their bodies remain wrapped in the calm heaviness of rest. The kind of rest that only comes after long labor and long silence. Inside homes, the air feels slightly cooler now than it did earlier in the night. The warmth stored in the walls is fading gradually, returning to the outside air. A farmer turns once in his sleep, then settles again. His breathing is steady. His mind is far away in dreams that leave no memory behind. Around him, his family remains close. The shared space of sleep feels smaller now, not because anything has changed physically, but because morning is approaching and the sense of night is slowly becoming thinner. Outside, the village is still dark. But not as deeply dark as before. The shadows are no longer complete. They feel softer at their edges, as if they are beginning to loosen. The streets remain empty. The market remains closed. The workshops remain silent. Yet everything feels slightly closer to waking. Along the river, the Nile carries a faint new tone. Still dark, still calm, but with a subtle shift that only those familiar with it might notice. The water reflects less absence now, and more suggestion. The sky above it is no longer absolute black. There is a sense of space returning to it, even if color has not yet arrived. A fisherman in his boat begins to prepare for shore. His hands move slowly, guided by habit more than thought. The night's work has reached its natural end. Nets are gathered. Lines are secured. The boat is readied for its return. He does not rush. There is no need. The river allows every movement to happen in its own time. Above him, stars remain visible, but some feel slightly dimmer than before. Not disappearing. Just stepping back as the world prepares to shift. He pauses for a moment, looking upward. This is a familiar moment for him. The quiet space between night and morning. a time when the river feels both still and alive. Then he begins rowing toward the shore. In the village, the earliest stirrings of waking begin. Not full movement. Just small changes. A child shifts beneath a cloth covering. A hand reaches slightly before settling again. A breath deepens, then steadies. These are the first gentle signs that sleep is loosening its hold. But most people remain asleep. The village still belongs to night. Farther inland, the fields wait in silence. They are unchanged from the night before, yet they feel different in the approaching light. The soil is cool. The plants are still. The irrigation channels lie quiet. But the entire landscape feels as though it is holding itself in readiness. Not for anything sudden. Just for what always comes next. Morning. The desert beyond the fields remains vast and still. It holds the night differently than the valley does. There is no softness here from human life, no warmth from homes or fires. Only open space, shaped by wind that passed earlier and now rests unseen. Yet even here, the sense of transition exists. The night is not as complete as it was hours ago. Time is moving forward everywhere at once. Without exception. Back near the riverbank, the fisherman reaches shore. He steps out of the boat slowly, feeling the ground beneath his feet. The rope is secured. The boat rests. The night's labor is finished. For a moment, he stands still, letting his body adjust to land again. The air feels slightly cooler here than on the water. He takes a slow breath. Around him, other fishermen begin to return as well. Their movements are quiet, coordinated, familiar. There is no celebration, no speech, only completion. The work of the night is done. Soon, they will return home. Soon, they will sleep. But for now, there is only this moment of transition. In the village, the sky continues its slow change. Still dark, but no longer deep. A faint suggestion of light begins to gather at the edge of the horizon. Not visible in color yet, but present in feeling. The world is becoming aware of itself again, little by little. A rooster calls somewhere in the distance. The sound is brief. Then silence returns. But this silence is different. It is no longer the silence of deep night. It is the silence of approaching morning. Inside homes, more people begin to stir. Still not fully awake. But closer now. A father opens his eyes for a moment, then closes them again. A mother shifts slightly, sensing the change in the air. A child turns toward warmth. Sleep is beginning to loosen everywhere at once. Outside, the Nile continues its steady movement. It reflects the first uncertainty of dawn, where night and morning overlap without clear boundary. The river does not change with urgency. It never does. It simply carries the world through each transition as it always has. The fisherman watches the horizon one last time before leaving the riverbank. He knows what comes next. The return of light. The return of work. The return of another day shaped by the same rhythms as the one before it. But for now, everything is still in between. The village has not fully awakened. The night has not fully ended. And Egypt rests in the softest hour of all, where darkness begins to fade, and morning quietly waits to arrive. The first light of morning does not arrive all at once. It spreads slowly across the Nile Valley, as if the world is being gently uncovered rather than awakened. The darkness that held everything through the night begins to loosen, not disappearing suddenly, but thinning in soft layers. The river is the first to reflect it. A faint silver line appears along its surface, shifting with the current. The Nile, always moving, now carries both night and morning at the same time for a brief moment. Stars still linger above, but they feel distant, as if stepping back to make room for the coming day. In the villages, sleep begins to end in quiet stages. A farmer opens his eyes and remains still for a while, listening to the calm air inside his home. His body feels heavy with rest, but not yet ready to move. The memory of yesterday's labor still lives in his muscles, but it no longer feels sharp. It feels softened by sleep. Nearby, his family begins to stir as well. No one speaks yet. There is no need. Morning is not rushed. It simply arrives. Outside, the village slowly reveals itself again. Mud brick walls catch the first light. Narrow paths between homes become visible once more. The market, still empty, waits for movement to return. The workshops remain quiet, but not for long. Everything feels paused in the final breath between night and day. Along the river, fishermen finish their return. Boats are tied securely along the shore. Nets are left to rest. Hands that worked through the night now fall still. The river continues its endless motion beside them, unchanged by human exhaustion or human rest. One fisherman stands for a moment longer than the others. He looks out over the water. The same water that carried him through darkness. The same water that will carry others tomorrow night. There is no conclusion in his expression. Only understanding. Then he turns away. And walks back toward the village. As he leaves the river behind, the sky continues to brighten. Soft gold begins to replace gray. The horizon opens wider. Palm trees regain their shape against the light. Fields reappear in detail, row by row, as if the land itself is being redrawn. Inside homes, life returns gradually. A mother rises to begin the morning. A child sits up slowly, still half in sleep. A father prepares to leave for the fields again. The routines return without announcement. They never truly leave. They only pause. Smoke begins to rise again from cooking fires. The scent of grain returns. Water is collected. Tools are gathered. Doors open. Footsteps return to the paths. The village moves once more into its familiar rhythm. Not as something new, but as something continuing. The desert beyond the fields is lit again, vast and silent as ever. It does not change with the presence of light. It simply reveals itself differently under the sun. The same stillness remains, only now visible instead of hidden. And the Nile continues to flow through everything. Through fields. Through villages. Through days and nights. Through labor and rest. Through life itself. It does not begin. It does not end. It only moves. As the sun rises fully above the horizon, Egypt awakens once again into another ordinary day. Farmers return to their fields. Craftsmen return to their work. Families return to their routines. The river continues its steady path through the land, shaping everything without ever needing to speak. And in this quiet return of morning, nothing feels like an ending. Only continuation. Only rhythm. Only the gentle unfolding of life beside the eternal Nile.